One college institution taking a stand for free speech. The University of Chicago telling incoming freshmen that the school will not allow safe spaces and will not support trigger warnings or cancel speakers just because they're controversial. The school explained that they are not going to impede the university's commitment to freedom of inquiry. Danielle, McLaughlin, and Heather Higgins join me now on this. All right, this is a serious issue. Now, you've written a lot about this. This is something that you're very passionate about. Do you feel like maybe the pendulum is starting to swing with respect to these college campuses that have caved completely and sort of rejected the very essence of why they exist?
Well, the University of Chicago is one bright light, but I don't know that that constitutes a pendulum swing. A really useful site for people who want to understand this issue is called heterodoxy.com. There's something that Jonathan Haidt started. He wrote the book, The Righteous Mind, and he walks through the whole victim culture and how you get power from being a victim and what drives a lot of this on the different campuses. So it's still a problem, as you can see, elsewhere. Sure,
but considering how massive this, it feels like a movement in the last couple of years to provide all these safe spaces for all these bruised feelings. and listen, the finger points to progressives, that this is part and parcel of the whole progressive movement. And to Heather's point, victimization, it goes from day one throughout the rest of your life.
No, and I think we have discussions about victimization and privilege and other bigger issues, but I'm a progressive who agrees with Heather. I think that one of the fundamental rights that we have in this country and something that fundamentally underpins higher education is freedom of expression and freedom of speech. We have a tenure system so that academics can take positions that are either against their universities or that are broadly unpopular. And some of the work that I've done, certainly I've written about a group who really pioneered in law schools the notion that you bring speakers in from both sides of the political spectrum and you let them talk and let people hear what they maybe not want to hear.
You guys are sort of in agreement, but how do we get here then? How did this mushroom into the issue that it is to this point? Because it seems like almost overnight, speakers were being kicked out of college campuses and events were canceled. And I mean, the University of Missouri is just going through pure hell. They've lost students. They've lost stature in my mind.
Well, academic administrations have never been known as really having spines of steel, right? And you have a whole sensitivity culture where nobody wants to be the bad guy who says, no, actually, if it's difficult for you, maybe that's actually a good thing. They've positioned it wrong so that kids are coming into college thinking that they ought to have these sort of, as you heard on the Yale videos, this is supposed to be like home, it's supposed to be safe, I'm supposed to have trigger warnings and not be offended by anything. But in fact, the whole purpose of a university is to be an unsafe space intellectually, where you get uncomfortable about ideas, so you learn more things. The challenge that we've got is that it's a culture of emotional thinking rather than critical thinking. It's one of hypersensitivity and demonization and of shutting down speech rather than learning how to, as you are saying, having a discussion and learning from people. We are doing a huge disservice to kids by enabling this sort of mentality.
So if that's the case, I want your opinion on a course that's a little bit different. Okay, SUNY Binghamton has a class that's called How to Stop White People. It's more or less a class for to teach kids how to have a conversation with uneducated white people who may have bigoted opinions, and I guess how to tolerate them and bring them, some sort of rope them in. I think that's the essence of this, Danielle.
Maybe you're right. The way I saw this was a way into having some difficult conversations about race, about inequality, about some of the things that we find hard to talk about. I think the name is a little bit tongue-in-cheek, and frankly, you can't take two positions. You can't say you're objecting to the name and then say there should be no safe spaces, because you might not like that name, but that's what University of Chicago is trying to do. And I know there are separate institutions, but they're trying to say you might not like it, maybe you'll go and you'll learn something.
I want to disagree a little bit there, because the objection to the name is not saying that they can't say it. And it's certainly not trying to deny these resident advisors from talking to other resident advisors about serious issues. but it is pushing back on the mentality of division. If you saw the story in the paper online, actually the very first picture they had was a white guy with a rifle in front of a Trump sign, which had nothing to do with the story, but it was this whole race baiting that was going on. And it's a large part of why Trump is doing so well.
When you put a name like that out there, I think you expect that sort of that to come along with it. Ladies, thank you both very much. Really appreciate it.